The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just share my screen and put this in a slideshow mode. Great. We'll kick off right on time. Just keep this on the side. Brilliant. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shivi Chandna. I'm a business analyst here at Policy in Practice, and I'll be doing the Benefit and Budgeting Calculator training webinar today. So first of all, just a few things before we start. An audio check. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure if you'll be able to figure out. If you can't, but I mean, one of the ways you can let me know is by raising your hand. And I can already see a hand raised. Okay. Brilliant. So that's great. If you should also be able to see my screen, and if you have any questions, you can use the box on the right hand side of your screen to ask them. I will be breaking over the session for any questions and unmuting you. So if you have any questions at that point, please feel free to ask me. So just before we start, one other thing, we will be having the session for about 40 minutes or so, depending on the number of questions we have. So 30 minutes for the demonstration of the calculator and its various features, and then 10 minutes for Q&A. And of course, we will be breaking up in the middle as well for any questions. Brilliant. Great. Now on to the next slide. If I can make it go. There you go. That's me. Nice to meet you all virtually. These slides are taking a bit of a time to load. Okay, there might be a little bit of a delay, just to let you know, because I am doing this webinar from far away, and also just in terms of the times when I click onto the calculator and the way it gets relayed onto your screens. Sometimes there can be delays depending on individual internet connections. A little bit about Policy in Practice. We make the welfare system simple to understand. That's our mission, and we were started about 5 to 6 years ago by our founder, Devin Gilani. We have a huge team of 14 people who are a mixture of policy analysts, as well as technology people, as well as policy consultants. We work with around 40 to 60 local authorities, housing associations, charities, etc. One of the people who has been involved in developing and designing the calculator is my colleague Zoe Charlesworth, who's been working in the welfare policy world for the last 30 years. So yeah, we have a credible team on board. I have already mentioned the agenda to you. So an introduction, going through key benefits of the calculator, showing you the different features. I'll jump into the calculator straight away after a few of these slides. We break for some questions. I'll show you some other features and exciting features like scenarios and the universal credit calendar feature. And then again, we'll do some questions. So we have some polls to be given out during the webinar session, and then a quick summary and any other resources that we have that we'll share with you after this. Brilliant. Just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded, so there will be a recording available to you after this. We'll send a follow-up email, and you please feel free to share that with your colleagues later on. Brilliant. So let me try and launch the first poll. So what best describes your current role? I think I just pressed launch, and this I'll keep it open for a minute or two. If you could please respond and let me know what is your role. And And then I will try my best to share the results of the poll. I'm still figuring out the system, so, but it's nice to see some responses. I'll give it a few more. Well, I'll give it another minute or so just to get the responses in. Brilliant. I think that's a pretty good response rate. Now is the tricky bit. I need to figure out how to share the results. So I close this. Great. And then I'm not, oh, there you go, share. Aha. So I've shared my poll results. 50% of you are benefit and welfare advisors. There's somebody who's a debt advisor, and then we also have other people on board. So that's great to have a good mix here. And I'll bear that in mind while I'm doing this training session, because there are different bits of the calculator that would be very useful for the benefit advisors. And there are certain features of the calculator that the budgeting people on this webinar would find quite useful. So I'll bear that in mind, and I'll sort of do the webinar accordingly. So that's really useful. Now I need to figure out how I switch off the results. Hide poll results. Okay, brilliant. Great. So I think you should hopefully be able to see my screen again. And if you can't, please let me know. I think we're fine. So that's a good mix of people on board. And so now I think what's best to do is just show you a few slides on what all are the key benefits of the calculator, and then I'll log into the calculator and show you how to use it. So we do give out personalized benefit advice. You have the ability to save, store, and access cases, show what all changes may mean to income in the household, and obviously make comprehensive benefit calculations. And also, we accurately maximize income, so you can help your clients accurately maximize income, deal proactively with real life, improve frontline engagement, and obviously prepare for universal credit changes. So let's go straight in. Let me get out of my slides, and I'll show you the screen right here. So let me log out. So the calculator works on a browser. So you just need to access betteroffcalculator.co.uk and go onto this website. This is the screen that you will see. And please click on Remember Me so that you remain logged into the calculator for 30 days. So I log in, and that's the screen that you will see. And I just want to mention that the calculator does work offline. So those of you who might be going and visiting your clients in remote locations, all you need to do is go onto the calculator, log in while you have internet, and then you can take your iPad or your tablet with you, and the calculator will work offline. You can do that calculation with them if there is no internet, but the only thing that wouldn't work, just to let you know, is that you wouldn't be able to save a case. But otherwise, the calculator works really well offline as well. So that's how you're logged in straight away, and you can see all the different tabs here on the left-hand side. What I will do is I want to load up an existing case that I have used prepared for this training session. So we click on My Cases, and I click on Open a Case, or I can just click on Open here. And depending on the number of cases you have, or you can see there's a big list of all the different cases my colleagues and I have been using. And you'll also notice that some of these have this plus sign. So what we do is that we maintain an audit trail of the case within the calculator. So if your colleague worked on this case today and then you went on leave, and then your other colleague wanted to use that case and save it, then that audit trail would be maintained here. So you can see Zoe worked on it, and then Pauline, and then Pauline again on different dates in the calendar. So I just have to press load, and the case gets loaded. So let's go over to the tab here. So it's a very simply laid out calculator tool. It's like a simple form. You go down the form as you make your entries. I've got somebody here who is a single person living in this particular postcode, just chosen randomly, born in 1973. And immediately, depending on your postcode, we tell you whether you live in a universal credit area or not. So obviously that has changed from today. So all of them are in a universal credit area. You have the option of selecting which benefit system you're interested in. So just because then the questions related to that particular system would only appear in the calculator. The calculator is really dynamic. So I've loaded a case where all the details are already filled in. But basically, if you did not have any children in the family, then none of these questions around children or second child would appear. So in this particular case, I've got this person has 2 children, born in 2008 and 2010. They also have a non-dependent in the household. You'll notice next to all these labels, we have this little green question mark. So this is a really handy thing. And basically, if you want to figure out what exactly we're trying to ask you here, then you can click on this and it gives you that extra bit of information about that case. So non-dependent is someone aged 18, or under universal credit, it's someone aged 21 or over, living in the same household, etc. And so in this household, we have one non-dependent. They do not have any income, and they are under 21 years of age. But you may notice that if you click on these, then you see all the other different options here. Similarly, for disability and illness, if you are if it's a really simple case, then you wouldn't have any questions showing up here for disability, illness, ESA, and caring. But if there is someone disabled in the household, then we press yes, and then we select, yes, are you or your partner too ill to apply to work, too ill to work? Yes, and then what category of ESA category are you in, etc. And then we also cover questions around blindness or carers. We also cover questions around students and non-UK nationals. I will let you explore that yourself later on when you log into the calculator. And then we go into property details. It immediately tells you on the basis of postcode which council you're in, whether you live in a UC area or not. We do cover all different types of housing sectors. So if you click here, you can see renting from a private landlord, temporary bed and breakfast, temporary house flat, support or care included, owner occupier, etc. And then the questions are shown accordingly. So right now, let's click on somebody who's staying in a council house in a 3-bedroom property, and they're paying rent £110 per week. And you can see that because there are questions around whether somebody is a carer or not, whether they're a foster carer or not. And if you were to select private rented accommodation, we would also calculate the LHA rate for you and tell you what that is. So there are questions around severe mental impairment for council tax, because in this particular household, we selected that there is somebody who's disabled. And then we tell them that we're in council tax band C, questions around whether somebody is a single occupier or not. And then we tell you what your council tax liability would be. So in this case, it's £128.42 per month. And that's shown for 12 months as well as 10 months. Going to the next page, really simple. As you may have noticed, we're going through all these tabs. So we've done household details and property details, and now we're under income and earnings. And what I forgot to show you at the start was this right-hand side. This is where you need to keep your eye on as well. Basically, it's like a quick summary bar, and it's showing and doing all the calculations of the income for this household. So that's what you see here. Under the current situation, this is their income from what we have told them so far. And right now we're seeing all values as monthly. But if you wanted to toggle if the person is receiving or budgeting weekly values, then you can select weekly. And I'll go through some of these as we go along. So coming back to income and earnings, are you in work? Yes. And then we've said that this person is earning £8.50 per hour, and they're working 14 hours a week. And you have the option of adding other jobs. If they're self-employed, especially, they may have multiple jobs. So you have the option of specifying that. Private questions around private pension contributions are there as well. And then we have further questions around, do you or your partner qualify for JSA, ESA? So a lot of these questions only appear if you have selected certain things in the calculator in the other tabs. So for instance, because this household has 2 children, we have this question around childcare costs. And you may want to put in some costs yourself, or you may want to use this feature to which calculates the average costs for your area. Any other sort of non-means tested income, any questions related to that can be answered under this section. So I'll just click yes to show you what I mean. So you can see now we have a few more questions here. So any sort of sick pay, statutory, maternity pay, maternity allowance, etc. All of that gets covered here. Rental income from boarders or tenants, property income, etc. gets covered here. So let's leave that out for now for the purposes of this training session. And we do have questions around tax credits as well, especially for people who are self-employed. Their income would be quite different across different years. So you can mention those values here. And let's go on to the final page, the results tab, where all of this comes together. And the first thing that you see is take-home income. So take-home income that's been calculated for this household is £2,000 per month. We also tell you whether you're eligible to apply for universal credit or not. And then there's a detailed breakdown of, well, right now we've selected the current system, and you may want to see the breakdown under universal credit. So then you can click on this toggle button here, and you can click on universal credit. And just give it a few seconds while it recalculates the different incomes, and it'll show you the amounts for, so how much they're eligible for from UC. And we have just recently added a new feature where if you're helping people claim these benefits, there is a handy little button here which takes you straight to the gov.uk website. So for instance, child benefit, I'll click here and it takes you straight to the child benefit website. And you'll also notice that there's a little information icon. So those of you who are benefit advisors, you'll be used to doing these calculations by pen and paper previously perhaps. And you can click on this, and what it really does is tries to emulate that pen and paper modeling system and shows you that breakdown here. So you can click on expert calculation breakdown, and it literally shows you step by step how we reached that value. So maximum council tax support, any local council tax support maximum, how many adults are in the household, child, etc. I'm not going to go through this now, but essentially you see that breakdown. If your client is interested in exactly looking at this breakdown themselves later on, you can print this out. So you can print on this button here, print that breakdown. So let's go back to the results. So this will appear for under every sort of detailed breakdown section. I'm conscious of the time, so I'm just gonna speed up a little bit. And we also have a feature called Overwrite these values. So essentially, if any of these values do not match to what the client is getting, so you have the option of overwriting them. And then once you overwrite them, all the other benefits will also get recalculated accordingly. And then we have this, for those of you who might be helping people get back into employment, perhaps, you can click on change your earnings. And it's a new sort of, it's an accordion that we've had for a while. And what it does is it gives you the breakdown of their current situation. And then it gives you a number of hours they're working currently. So they're working 8.5, they're getting paid £8.5 per hour and working 17 hours a week. And then you can easily use these sliders. All it does is it changes the amount of income they're earning. This is just a really handy tool for them to figure out, or for you to show them, get them engaged in this conversation around, by the way, if you started to work these many number of hours more, then your income would change by this much amount. So that's what this does. But then once they're hooked in, you can show them the scenarios feature and actually go in and do a calculation with a different job. And And then we have also linked up with Find a Job. So if you're helping them look for a job, you can use this handy tool here. So at this point, what I want to show you is what's happening in all of these little fields here. So there's a button here called Information about your case. You can click on it, and what it does is it just gives you that extra bit of information about the benefits this household is eligible for. You're all benefit experts, but this is just here as a reminder to tell you what all you might be, you perhaps may want to discuss some of these options with your client. They can get help with water costs. They may be eligible for free prescriptions. There is a new alert that we've put in, which is around debt advice. So this household currently is in debt. So we've just pinpointed them to the links for citizens advice, money advice service, national debt line, etc. Okay, and that's your results page. And then at this point, if you also wanted to add any actions for them to perhaps come back to you with their budgeting, bills, etc., then you can use this action plans feature. You can show any actions. There are no previous actions. They can click on add actions and then just say come back in 3 months. And then this is like a really handy to-do list for them or for yourselves. And then there you go. And then press add, and that gets added. We also have this really handy widget called Advice Local, which you can use to get local advice on welfare or anything else for that particular postcode. Okay, so at this point, if you wanted to download this as a PDF, you can click on this button here. You can email this to your client as well, or to another colleague in your organization. And then I'm keen to move on to the budgeting tab. So let's go on to budgeting. You'll see there are 3 tabs here. This is a preloaded case, so we've already loaded all the information in it. And let's click on enter costs. This is modeling very similar to the standard financial statement. And what we have here is home and contents will have all the rental information. Utilities, let's go into utilities. You will see questions around how much do you pay for gas, electricity. You have this handy little feature called use averages. So we look at the ONS family survey data for what should be an average expenditure for this household for water. And we show that value here. This is in the case if they come into you without any sort of budgeting details with them, you can use this as a handy little feature. It can also be used to gauge whether they may be underreporting or over-reporting their bills for the household. Similarly, you can have school costs, pension insurance, food and housekeeping, debts, any council tax arrears, etc., rent arrears. And you also have a place to write down any notes. So you can write any notes such as mobile costs don't include internet costs, etc., just to be depending on how detailed you want to be. And then after entering all this information, you can click on this cost summary and savings tab. And what it does is it's basically collating all the different information that we've provided in the enter costs tab here, and then presenting it to you and your client in a really engaging, English is not my first language, clearly, engaging format. So there you go. We've got a breakdown of home and contents, food and housekeeping, etc. Just seeing all these bright, lovely colors, your client is really going to be engaged in, finding out more about how they can budget better. And then you've got how much are you left with after your costs are taken out. So for instance, this is their income here, and they're actually at this point, their costs are higher than their income. And that breakdown is shown here. And then again, if you're comparing your costs with similar households, how much are you spending? And these are just rough guidelines to help you have that conversation with them to say, this is somewhere where you could be making some allowances or budgeting a little bit better. And you can sort of highlight those values here. And then I'm conscious that I've been going on for a while, so I'll show you the smart budget feature next, and then we'll break for questions. So smart budget, after you've gone through all the expenditures, you may still want to help your client with sort of going into the nitty-gritties of budgeting and really helping create a personalized budgeting plan for them. So then you can go into smart budget. And what we're doing here is essentially asking you questions in further detail about any sanctions that they may have, or any benefit advances, or any discretionary housing payments that are being paid from the council, etc. And then once those have been answered, you can click on Show Smart Budget, and it's really creating a personalized budgeting plan for your client that you can give to them as a printout, and they can walk away with it. What we do here is, and it does take a few seconds, that's because it's first of all calculating all the income of the household. Then it's breaking down all the expenditures into priority payments and non-priority payments. It's also taking out any deductions that are made at source. So here we go. As you can see, the breakdown of the income, any deductions that are being made at source, whatever money is being paid directly to the landlord, etc., all the priority payments, all the other outgoings. And then you can see these buttons at the bottom here. You can download this as a PDF, you can print it out, and you can give that to them so that they can go home with that budgeting plan in their hands. And that should really help them budget better. So I'm gonna go back to my slides now and just see. Actually, let's go back here. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop now and pause for a minute and see if anybody has any questions at this point. So I think I can unmute everyone. Okay, I should have unmuted you. And if there's anybody who now has any questions, please feel free to raise your hands and I can unmute you, or ask any questions through the chat system, etc. Hi, Tori. Hi, Tori. Hi, Tori. I think I can hear you. Do you have a question? Oh, maybe not. I think that hand was raised from before. Okay, if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to raise your hands. Okay, it seems like nobody has any questions as of now, which is not a problem. So I'm going to go and put everyone back on mute, just so that we don't have any background noises. And before we do that, I also will do a poll after this session, after I finish the next two features that I want to show you. Okay, let's go back. There we go. So we've covered budgets and we've covered the basic sort of calculator feature on how do you figure out the income. Now I want to show you this scenarios feature. Looks like somebody raised a hand. Nope. Okay, just a little bit of a logistical issue. Great. So you may want to help your client with a change of circumstances. This may be for if you're working in a housing association, perhaps, and you want to help them understand if a particular property is better for them or not. Or maybe they are trying to judge whether a third, what would be the impact of having a third child on their household income. Or perhaps they want to figure out which job they should choose from. They may have several job offers, or whether they should be increasing the number of hours, and then how is that going to affect their household income and the benefits that they receive from the government. So for that, we have the scenarios feature. And you click on add scenarios, and what it does is you can see there's a new tab created automatically. It's copying everything from the current situation into scenario 1. And then you can go in to scenario 1 and change anything that you want to. So perhaps maybe they should be living in a property which is a 2-bedroom property, or maybe let's just go with them looking at a different job. So maybe they want to increase the number of hours they're working, and they start working 40 hours a week, and they want to see if this job, let's say, is paying £11 an hour. So you will see here on the right hand side that there's a new button called scenario 1. So a new scenario has been created and their income has increased. And what you may want to do next is actually do a comparison, perhaps show them through this detailed breakdown how much income they would be getting, how it would impact the benefits that they are receiving from the state, and maybe do a comparison of the scenarios. So here's a breakdown as the current situation, a similar breakdown on what all they would receive. And then you can also do compare scenarios and click on compare scenarios, and you have current situation here. And actually, let's just say I have the option of changing the name of this scenario. So let's just say found new job. Okay. And then in this situation, this is their income. You can see a drastic change in their net earnings in this new scenario. And you have the option of actually having up to 4 scenarios. So you can have 4 scenarios and then compare 4 scenarios, which would be very useful, especially if they're comparing 4 different types of jobs. They can compare the cost they would have, any surplus or shortfall they would have. So in this scenario, with the current costs, they would have £84 spare. But obviously, I'm very aware at this point I haven't modified any of the budgeting information. So if they do take up more number of like an increased number of hours, they perhaps have to pay more for childcare and or they have to pay more for transportation costs, etc. So those would get affected, and then you can show them in detail how that impacts them. And then again, for this particular scenario, the benefit advice might change. So you can click on information about your case to get more help. And that's scenarios for you. It's a really, really useful feature. And then you can also at this point then print out the information for this particular scenario that they can take with them. And then the other feature that I want to show you is the UC calendar feature. So for those of you, you must be aware, obviously, universal credit is paid monthly, and what UC calendar does is it allows people who are on non-monthly incomes, who may be used to budgeting to weekly amounts perhaps, or it shows a breakdown of the universal credit income for the next 12 months. So in this instance, the person is getting paid hourly, and then we can go into UC calendar, and this tab will only appear if they're eligible for UC. So this UC calendar tab appears, and it asks you just a few more questions around, select the date on which your UC assessment period starts, how often are you getting paid your current income, and then you can just generate UC calendar. And what it does is it's creating 12 different scenarios, and it's going into the future and looking at all the different months and what the UC income would be for that month. And these little orange triangles here are highlighting the months in which the payment is less compared to the other months. So this may be because, if they're getting paid on Fridays, and then some Fridays may have 5 Fridays, some months may have 5 Fridays in them. So accordingly, you could see that, their income would get affected. And then you can have that conversation with them that they need to budget accordingly. So in February, they would get paid lesser, so they need to budget accordingly. And again, you have the option of printing this out, print the UC calendar, and they can take that with them. And that's it. I think I just want to highlight a few of the features that we have in the calendar, in the calculator, that would be useful for everyone. You may have noticed this big blue button here. So at any point while using the calculator or when trying to log in, if you face any issues or if you have any benefit policy related questions, you can just chat to us here through this blue box, and let us know who you are and ask us your question. And there you go. Our team monitors this chat function 9 to 6 a.m. UK time, and we have policy experts, we have benefit policy experts, we have also got obviously technology experts like me, and you can use it anytime. And also, otherwise, if you need any other help, if you click on this cogwheel button, then you can take a tour of the calculator. You can also click on these help pages, which has a 5-minute quick guide. Also, it has a 10-minute tutorial, which tells you the features in the calculator in a similar way to what I've just shown you. And there are some other features for those of you who are administrators or managers in the calculator. You'll have this team management top button here, and there are some other features where you can manage users and you can download all the cases that you have saved in the calculator as well. So at this point, I would like to launch our second survey. If I just share that, and people can just perhaps, I'm going to launch it now. And if you can just, after listening to how the calculator would perhaps help you in your job, then please let us know what you think, how you think the calculator will help you in your current job. And then I'll share those results with you. Great. Thank you so much for your responses. That's a really, really good response rate. And I'm just going to close the pause now and share the results with you. And that's really good to see how the calculator will be helping you out. And now I'll go back to my slides. So at any point, and now that we've sort of gone through all the features of the calculator, do you have any questions? Please raise your hands, or yeah, and I can unmute you. Let me just unmute everyone. Any questions, anybody? Please feel free to use the chat box or raise your hand. Okay. I think looks like nobody has any questions now. Okay, well, I would like to mention that, you have my email address, shivi@policyandpractice.co.uk. You can also email helpdesk@policyandpractice.co.uk, as well as hello@policyandpractice.co.uk, and we have your number here. We will be sharing the results of, the recording as well as the slides for you to share with your colleagues. And just before you go, there is, like I mentioned, there is further support at this website. And there is a next webinar, which would be on the 13th of February 2019, features to help with budgeting. And after I close this webinar, there'll be a short survey. Please just spend 1 minute of your time to help us, improve the webinar better, or any questions, any feedback that you may have, you can feel free to let us know about that. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And I hope you found this useful. Thank you very much. Bye.